All right, what's going on, everybody? This is the Negro Shotty. I'm here with Rex Sparks. Today, we're going to be discussing God of War. If you haven't beaten God of War, you haven't played the game or anything, and you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this video. We're going to be talking about everything that pretty much happened in the game, every aspect of the game. I was going to do a scripted review for this, but I didn't really feel like doing it especially for this game, just because of the way that I kind of feeling about the game right now. And I just, I'll be honest, I'm completely lazy when it comes to doing reviews. Especially lately, I've gotten like really lazy when it comes to writing reviews and stuff, and so that's why I decided to go ahead just do a review discussion instead of doing a scripted review, because my scripted reviews don't even get that many views now. So I just decided, this is probably the best avenue to uh, get my thoughts out there and everything. So without delaying anything, so what do you think about the story of the game so far? I guess we could just focus on the story aspect of it. What do you think about the story? Because I thought it was the strongest aspect of the game.
I absolutely love the direction that they took with Kratos and just how far he's come with everything since the third game of where we left him as a determined psychopath, being the world's most determined atheist to kill every god. He's done that, and then now it's like, what happens when you got your vengeance bloodlust out of your system? You mellow the fuck out, and that's exactly what happens here. And just him being a more like thought-provoking character rather than just thinking with his anger every 24 seconds really helped this. I just absolutely love the direction it took, and as well as the more mature Kratos in comparison to the old games where he was just pretty much like one note with his "I'm gonna kill Zeus" and all that. So I loved it.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think that the story and the writing is probably the best part of this game. They decided to basically take Kratos from being this character who is largely angry all the time, like you said, and they added a lot of layers to it. I'm surprised that they actually kept all the last games as canon. So this game it's not necessarily a reboot. It's a soft reboot, if anything.
It's a
They still
continuation.
decided to, yeah, it's still a continuation. They decided to keep the continuity, but they decided to add on to it. And there are a lot of aspects. There are a lot of things that they show in the later part of the game. There's a lot of stuff that they show that are like references from like the past games. So if you play God of War 3 or just any games in the series, you'll know what those certain things are like referencing in the game. Like there's that scene where he's seeing Zeus or he's seeing Athena from the other games. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you've been a fan of God of War for a while, there's that stuff that a lot of fans will see. But this game, they designed it in a way where you don't really have to, like, you didn't have to really play the other games in order to get into this. So this is probably a good entry point for anybody who's trying to get into the series. But just talking story overall, I thought the story was really good, especially when it first starts out. I was actually surprised that I didn't really like. I thought I was gonna hate this new take on Kratos, because a lot of people were thinking that maybe they were kind of making him too soft. They were kind of toning him down. They did tone him down a little bit, but you can tell by the delivery of the voice actor, and they changed voice actors for Kratos also. That was another thing that a lot of people might have been a little hesitant on accepting the new version of Kratos. But to be honest, I actually like this voice actor, and I told you the other day I actually like the new voice actor for Kratos a lot more than the original voice actor. I went back and watched a few of the old God of War cutscenes and stuff, and to be honest, I actually like this new voice actor. His voice is just so deep and so. It's like the man took a whole thing of helium. It's like I feel like he kind of fits Kratos a lot more. And one thing I will say, I do like the voice acting in this game. I thought the voice acting was top notch. I'm pretty sure you probably feel the same.
Oh yeah, I think Christopher Judge does a much better job of being Kratos than T.C. Carson. I believe that's the old voice actor's name for Kratos.
Yeah, like which one of them was on The Living Color? I think someone said one of them was on The Living Color or some old show.
I gotta look that up afterwards. I gotta look that up afterwards. But not only Christopher Judge, but every voice actor that they got for this was like really did their job. Like, oh my god, it's like I'm playing another movie. It's like it really works. So I love the voice acting in this. So
Like everyone, like every character, even down to the side characters, even down to Atreus, they're very well voice acted. And I will say that the writing for Atreus, like that whole dynamic, the whole father son dynamic, and the way that they make Atreus react to the world around him, and how he's always asking questions constantly, and Kratos has to, Kratos, it gets to a point where even Kratos is like, "Look, kid, I don't know the answer. You asking a lot of questions. I don't know. I don't know." You constantly hear Kratos saying, "I don't know. I don't know."
and honestly, like having that third voice that we talked about before, like Mimir, the the unsevered, the head, as Kratos just aptly names him.
Yeah,
He just
Kratos. That's another thing. Kratos doesn't really.
give a shit.
Well, yeah, that too.
He
But like
still don't give a
Kratos
shit.
doesn't call characters by their name. Like he calls his own son. He doesn't really. He rarely calls
Boy,
Atreus by his name. He just calls him boy.
boy.
I heard somebody say that like Kratos calls him boy at least over 136 times or something like that
Good
throughout the
God.
course of this game. He calls him boy. He calls Mimir head after you chop his head off later in the game. He calls the trolls the because there are these trolls in the game that fix up your armor, and you go to their shop and they'll fix up your armor, they'll upgrade your weapons, you get all your gear and stuff from these trolls, and he'll just call them dwarves or trolls or whatever. But yeah, Kratos, I like what they did with the character. I'm very surprised that I didn't come out of this hating the new direction for this character, because they make it seem as though he's been through a lot, and they make it apparent so that even if you haven't played the other games, you can tell he's done something in the past. And like once you get further into the game, they start to really talk about it. Because at first I thought that they weren't going to really address it at all. I was scared that they were going to not address a lot of the things that he did. But then later on in the game, he actually tells his son, because he knows that all the secrets that, like, he comes to find out that all the secrets that he basically held away from his son was actually hurting him, was actually making him
Yeah.
sick and stuff. And so I like the fact that they basically forced Kratos to confront his past and tell the truth to his son. And I do like the whole aspect. By the end of the game, we find out that the witch Freya, that is the mother of Boulder, a guy who comes in earlier on in the game and who confronts Kratos and stuff. And I love the fact that by the end of the game, Kratos is like, okay, we got to end this cycle of fathers, sons killing fathers, and sons killing mothers. Like that whole cycle of,
Children killing their parents.
yeah.
Which
So
is kind
like
of
I like the whole, what's the word for it? The whole like the parallels between Kratos and Freya. I like what they did.
yeah. Again, that's another aspect that I like. The only thing I don't like, though, about the story is I know we have to have conflict in games, and especially in God of War, even though like Kratos is matured and shit. But what was Thor and Odin thinking? Like, oh yeah, there's the motherfucker who killed all the gods in the Greek universe and destroyed his world. Let's go fuck with him.
Well, to be honest, I don't think from from what I can understand about the story after playing it all, I don't think that Odin really knew that much about Kratos. Because from my understanding, he sent Boulder. He sent Boulder because Boulder wanted to be able to feel pain and feel stuff because he couldn't feel anything. He couldn't die basically at
Thanks to
first.
Freya, right?
Yeah, thanks to something Freya did to him. But so he sent him after Kratos' wife, which turns out that he didn't know that she was dead. So he ended up going after Kratos and his son.
And it's funny. The only reason he kept coming after us is because we had her ashes the entire time.
Right.
It's like that's why. Just okay. Continue. Continue.
I lost my train of thought. What was it? What was it that you said? I was about to address something that you said.
It was that Thor and Odin kept coming after. Well, they didn't know, but still, it's like.
Well, yeah, that it's like he didn't. I don't think Zeus. I mean, not Zeus. I don't think Thor. I don't think Thor or Odin. I don't think they knew about Kratos being from another world. At least that's the way that I understood it. That they didn't really know.
Well, except now, like, now Thor has legit reason to come after Kratos.
I mean, yeah, because we end up killing his sons in the game. Yeah,
it's their secret ending. Haha. Yeah, thanks, guys. It's like, we got
that was kind of what's the word? That was kind of expected. Like you can kind of expect that. Okay, you killed his kin. You killed somebody in his family. So obviously he's gonna want revenge for that. I figured that they were gonna set it up to where we gotta fight Thor in the next game. We gotta fight Odin. We gotta kill the Norse gods now, basically.
Yeah, because
of course they gotta set it up like that.
And because we clearly just started Ragnarok too, so it's like, oops. Oops. It's like, here's the funny thing about this whole thing. We don't mean to start any of this shit. It just happens. Kratos just destroys shit just because he doesn't even mean to. He's not even intentional.
They kind of addressed that like later on in the game. Mimir,
you just break shit. I love that.
Mimir points out that he's good at destroying stuff, basically.
I love that because it's true. Because I thought about all the old games that we played through, and I'm just like, you're right. We have a long track record of just destroying shit everywhere, and didn't think about that in the past. Now he says it's like we do. All we do is just nothing but destroy shit. Which it's funny. It's funny. Mimir's awesome. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of great characters. Just going back just to the characters themselves, there's a lot of great characters in the game. Even the side characters, like Mimir, and like Brock, and what's his name? Shin. What's his name? Sindri. Is he the Sindri?
I think so.
Yeah, so Sindri and Brock. There's a lot of funny moments between those characters and stuff. Like I said, I can't praise this game's story and writing enough, mainly because I feel like that's the strongest aspect of the game. I will say this though, for those of y'all who probably haven't played this game yet,
we ruined everything.
You might not want to do the side missions first and stuff, because I feel like if there's one thing I can criticize this game when it comes to like the story, is just the pacing. It starts out paced very well, but if you play the side missions at first and then you try to go back to the main missions, it kind of hurts the pacing. And it doesn't help that I would say like maybe 3/4 through the game, like that back half of the game, it feels very poorly paced. It feels very slow. It feels like the game is almost dragging along, because I texted you yesterday. I feel like the game, it kept moving the goalposts. Like the story kept moving the goalposts. Okay, first we got to get to the top of the mountain, then scatter the ashes. Oh, now we have to find this rune so we can go to Jotunheim, and then like it just keeps moving the goalposts basically. And I get that that's a common way to kind of structure a story. Like your objective is here, but then you got to do all these other things to get to that objective. and the story's not going to be that straightforward. I mean, I get that, but I feel like the way that they did it, the story kind of dragged on. So that's something that I feel like they can kind of improve on in the next game is try to improve the pacing. Like I think that's probably like the weakest aspect of, or at least that's the only negative I can really find when it comes to the story.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because it did like feel like it kept like moving the carrot along as I call this, like they're literally dangling the carrot in front of your face as you keep running toward it. And it's like, okay, okay, stop moving the damn carrot. Just give me the damn carrot. Let me be done.
I mean, it's crazy that I want to say a few years ago, well, not even a few years ago, maybe like a few months ago, they were talking about how long this game is, and some people were skeptical. They said the game was going to be like 25 or 30 hours. They weren't kidding, especially if you do all the side missions.
Oh yeah,
and everything. This game has a lot of content in it. And I didn't even do all the side missions because, to be honest, I felt like the side missions were kind of boring. You might feel differently. I don't know how you feel about the side missions.
I'm you can't see, but I'm like moving my hand in like a mixed motion because I did do all the crap. I did everything pretty much because I got the platinum, but
I couldn't bring myself to do all that, man.
I know.
Like, after I beat the game, I said, I'm done. I'm good. I played enough.
So I know how long that took me, and even I was just like,
yeah, you beat the game in like 3 days. Not to cut you off, I'm just saying you beat the game in about 3 days. It took me almost 3 weeks.
Yeah, it took the story. It took me 3 days to beat the story. I didn't beat the entire game. It took me two weeks to beat everything that this game had. So, yeah, I have mixed reaction toward everything because like the Valkyries and like the challenges.
We're gonna get into that.
It mixed. I'm really mixed, especially on the fucking Valkyries, man. Like cheating feathered bastards. Anyway, they cheap. They cheap.
So let's go ahead and get into the combat. Let's go get into talking about the main gameplay and stuff. So this game, unlike the other games in the God of War series, like the original anthology, was more of a linear based game, whereas this is more open world. You have that hub world that you start in, which is Midgard. And I don't know how you feel about Midgard, but for me, I thought that there were a lot of, and I was telling you this the other day, there were a lot of locations in Midgard that looked exactly the same. I found myself accidentally backtracking. And then there are some things that you actually need to backtrack for, later on in the game in order to get chests and all these other things as you get further along into the story and gain different arrows and different items in order to unlock different sections of areas. But overall, I thought that the world itself was kind of empty. I felt that, like I said, I felt that a lot of the places kind of felt too identical. Because again, I caught myself many times, even though I was looking at the map. I felt I knew that most of the time I kept going back to areas that I really didn't mean to go to, and that's largely because a lot of the environments kind of look the same and stuff. But I will say that I did like the environmental puzzles that you had to kind of figure out how to move these certain things in order to get to a chest or in order to get across to a different area. I like the environmental puzzles. I think that the overall the environmental design, or I don't even want to say level design because this game doesn't really have levels, but the whole design of these different areas was pretty well done. I will say that. But overall, I thought that the hub world was like the weakest aspect of the open world. Well, what do you think?
Kind of, yeah, same, because I've been to everywhere like at least 2 or 3 times, and I was like, okay, this area is nice, but the other place could be different. It's like, okay, it's it was okay. Tub World, oh my god, that fucking canoe. My god,
Oh
just
yeah, that was something I forgot to bring up. But go ahead.
my fuck. Let me put some jets on this bitch, please. Please, can we fly? Can we fly? Can we do something? Like, I gotta get back in that canoe every 10
Every
minutes.
5 seconds, we got to get in that boat, man. And not to really cut you off or anything, because I want to let you speak. But this is something that I brought up earlier to you earlier in the week. So when you first start the game, fast travel is basically locked to you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get fast travel until like you're probably like maybe 70% or even 80% into the story. You don't get fast travel until late into the game, because I guess from a design standpoint, they want you to explore the world. And I hate when games do this nowadays, because these developers think they're being smart, because it does feel like padding almost. It feels like padding almost, that you have to, okay, I got to get into this boat and I got to travel all the way across to this other area where I could, if fast travel was unlocked, I could just fast travel to this location. But instead, fast travel is locked for like half the freaking game. So I have to go across the world in this freaking boat the whole time. And they do try to at least keep you entertained by having Kratos and Atreus tell stories. And then once you get Mimir, they'll start having Mimir tell stories and stuff. So they do try to keep you entertained while you're rowing that boat. But it got to a point where that novelty kind of
wore out.
Yeah, kind of wore off. So for me, I felt like restricting fast travel was a bad move, because even Horizon Zero Dawn, I felt that game had that issue too, where the game limited your fast travel. You had to buy these, I forgot what they're called, like travel packs or whatever. Because there was something that you had to buy in like Horizon Zero Dawn at the end that you could eventually have unlimited fast travels, but like I never unlocked it in the game. So there was basically times in Horizon Zero Dawn where it just felt like, man, they're having me walk all the way over here to get to this other location where you could have just let me fast travel there. And I get that they want players to explore the game, but it almost feels like you're trying to pad the game time out for players. I don't like it.
I get it, and it's funny because I was actually with the whole like, we gotta explore, bitches, no fast travel. I actually played a game and I'm like, I need fast travel. Oh my god, I can't believe, like, because I've been so like stuck with it, and when you take it away after a certain few like days of me playing something, whatever, it's like, okay, I need fast travel. I need it, especially with this. It's like, yeah, nah,
Like
canoes.
Well, go ahead.
The canoes were as welcome. I need my fast travel now. Go ahead.
Now, I didn't want to cut you off, but the main reason why, so like with games like this, I think like the main reason why it doesn't work is because, for one thing, you have to have something interesting in these areas. And especially going back to that problem I said earlier with some of the areas looking the same, there has to be something there for the player to discover. So like for Legend of the Zelda, I don't care for Breath of the Wild. I don't care for the Zelda games or whatever. I've said that millions of times, but from what I've heard people say about that game is that game has a lot of areas to discover, has a lot of cool things to discover in the environment. And so the way that they have it in that game, where you're constantly unlocking these I forgot what they call the little not towers in the game or whatever. I know there's something that you unlock in the game, and then you get to see like another part of the map or something like that. I know you beat the game, so I know you know what I know
exactly what you're talking about, but they are kind of towers, so but still, go ahead.
But yeah, like something like that, like I feel like that, like I personally, and maybe it's just me, I just don't like that game design choice. Like I feel like if you're going to do that, you got to have something interesting in the world for the player to like keep them going, keep them exploring the environment. Because otherwise, why lock fast travel out? Just why lock it out? That's kind of dumb to me.
Yeah, And
because otherwise you're just wasting my time. You're just making me walk all the way over there. Like I found myself so many times in like Horizon Zero Dawn, just holding the right stick or whatever to run. So I'm just running toward an area for like 10 to 15 minutes. I'm like, come on, let me fast travel. Because then there's all these enemies trying to attack you in that game. I'm just like, nah, man. Like, let me just fast travel. That's all I want to do. But yeah, I feel like that's one of the issues that I had with this. Anyway, but what you think about the puzzles? Though I know I said my piece on it. Did you have any like difficulty with with any of the puzzles or anything like
no,
that?
no, actually, and surprisingly, they were actually like I feel like they were much better handled in these rather than the ones before. To be honest with you, not to say that like those were like semi challenging, but they were a lot easier. They were like a lot better. Let me not say easier. They were a lot
Like,
better.
I can't compare the puzzles. I can't really compare the puzzles because, to be honest, I've only played God of War 3 and then the God of War games on the PSP, and it's been so long that I can't even remember. So I can't even really compare them.
Just take my word for it. I think the puzzles in this game were a lot better handled than like in past games. So I like them a lot.
Yeah, they're more kind of common sense puzzles. Although like the puzzles that are tied into like the story and stuff,
Uh,
those might require a bit more thinking. But I enjoyed them nonetheless. It was only one puzzle like really early on in the game, the one where you had to like throw the axe at the
uh,
gears and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that kind of threw me for a loop, man. That was the only one that I sat there for like 12, 13 minutes or whatever, trying to figure it out. But I ended up getting through it.
Good.
Okay, so other than other than that, we gotta get into the combat. We gotta talk about the combat
Oh boy.
and some of the other changes that they made to the system. So originally originally a game like this is a hack and slash game, a hack and slash action game. The God of War games in the past, that is the genre that they made these games in. It is similar to Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Dante's Inferno, those type of games. But now they've transformed God of War into an action RPG. And I've already spoken about this on the channel already, and I got to talk about it again here because
Uh,
I feel like I personally did not like the change to. I don't like the changes that they made. I don't like the fact that you turn this into an action RPG where I have to basically uh change gear and find gear and update my characters and stuff like they. For one thing, I'll say this: the action RPG elements in here, like the leveling up system, I don't like the way that they handled the level up system in this game. I don't like the fact that they have levels tied to your gear. I think I ended the game at either level 5 or level 6. That is weird. If like that is very weird if you end a RPG game at level 5 or level 6 at a low level. I don't know what is the max level in this game.
I think it's 8. I got to level 7. I never got to 8.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. I might have to look up what the max level is, but I don't like it when RPG games do this. Like, I think in the first Destiny they did something like that with like your light level and stuff, and that was one of the reasons that I put that game down. I did not like the leveling system in that. I feel like if you're gonna put RPG elements in the game, and this is one of my issues with just that gameplay loop, because the gameplay loop in this game, it just didn't click with me at all. Like I defeat an enemy, I get exp, I get experience, but I don't feel like I'm growing at all. Like I can defeat one of the soul devourers, or I forgot what they call like those different golem type enemies. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
I can defeat one of those big giant enemies or whatever and get experience from it, but I don't feel like I'm really growing as a character because all that experience goes toward your skills. And I feel like the skills in this game, I feel like a lot of it could have been baked into the command system automatically. Like a lot of that stuff didn't need to be unlocked. A lot of that stuff should have been in the system for the get go. To be honest, I feel like the skill trees was very lacking in this game. I feel like if you're gonna do an RPG, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't have your skills set up in a way that they did it in this game. Like I personally didn't find it rewarding. Like by the end, like I would say like halfway through the game or whatever, I had basically upgraded the bow all the way. I upgraded like all my skills and stuff. Like I didn't feel anything after really unlocking a lot of the skills and upgrading my weapons and stuff. Like, I didn't really feel like I was growing or getting stronger. I didn't feel like I was making Kratos any stronger. And with the gears going back to changing your armor and stuff, changing your gear, I didn't really feel like I'm getting any stronger when I'm changing my gear and stuff. Because as you change your gear and stuff, there's a bar where like your level is at that goes constantly up until you level up. And so I didn't personally feel like I was getting any stronger the more gear that I put on Kratos. But like, how do you feel about it? Because personally, like I said, I don't really like the whole RPG aspects and stuff that they added to this.
Put me on a spot. Okay. Honestly, I feel like because I'm so used to RPGs at this point, but when you look at God of War as a whole, honestly, Kratos does not need a armor or anything to actually get the job done, because we've seen him in so many games where it's like, okay, yeah, he just needs like that little gauntlet piece that he had in like the third game. It's like that wasn't really an armor at all, but it's something. But he never was sure to actually fight anything. So now you're supposed to tell me like because he's older and he now needs like protection now from everything now. Look, point what I'm trying to make is it's like I'm okay with it, but at the same time I don't really understand why it was needed to modernize it so much.
Yeah, like it feels like it feels totally unnecessary.
It feels like a complete modernization piece that they didn't need to include at all in here.
Yeah, because like not to cut you off, but like I get what you're saying. Like just about every game nowadays has some type of RPG
leveling system,
yeah,
or
some type of RPG leveling system in it. Like this goes back to even Horizon. I felt like even though they marketed Horizon like an RPG, I didn't like a lot of the choices that they made in that game when it came to the RPG aspects. And with this, they never once marketed this game as an RPG. Yeah, they did show some gameplay later on and told us that okay, yeah, we can change the armor of Kratos and stuff like that, and update the stats and stuff like that. But they didn't really market it as an RPG at first. They never marketed it as that. And I feel like that is one reason where it's like I feel like I'm like my opinion is valid because a lot of people love to dismiss or over the past few days I've had people
slam you for it.
Basically dismiss my opinion, saying that you should have known what this was by like looking at the gameplay beforehand. When they were showing at E3 and then Gamescom and then all these other events and stuff. But at first they barely showed us anything, and then they showed us the system like a few months back. And like again, I'm going into this thinking that it's going to be God of War, and God of War, like I was saying earlier, it has traditionally been a hack and slash action game. They just totally strayed away from that in this game. That's at least what I feel. And going back to what you said about just modernizing it, I feel like they just completely, and I've said this before, it's like they completely took the soul out of this game. It doesn't, as far as gameplay goes, it doesn't feel like a God of War game. And people keep trying to defend this and keep telling me, it's the same combat system. What you talking about? It's the same thing. No,
really?
No, not at all, man. Not at all. Not at all. First of all, the combat, as far as like the combat goes, as far as like inputs and stuff, it feels very it feels very simplistic. It lacks any depth, and I don't want to really harp on this game as far as it goes to like, because a lot of people were complaining about this game not having the jump mechanic, like you can't jump in the game.
I hated
And
it.
to be honest, I wasn't too mad about that when I heard that okay, like you can't jump in the game. I wasn't mad about it, and I was actually okay with it for like 80% of the game. But then it got to a point like yesterday when I was playing, and I was fighting like I think it was like one of those dark elves or something. You know, the flying enemies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, this would have been a lot better if I could jump up in the air and attack them in the air while they're flying. Like it gets to a point. It got to a point where like, why can't I jump in the air, hit them down? Like, I feel like by removing jumping, they did kind of remove what could have been a valuable option to you. I mean, you can like dodge and roll out the way and parry and stuff. So they do have things there to kind of help you defend yourself. But just overall, I thought that the combat definitely lacked the depth that the other games had. I thought the older games were a lot better. I thought that the combat in this is just too simplistic. The rune attacks and stuff, I wasn't too impressed with the rune attacks that you unlock in the game. I don't like the aspect, and I apologize because I know that you were talking at first, but I got to get this out because
fine, it's cool. I get it.
People were pissing me off every time I would comment on the video and talk about the things that I did not like about the game, and yet they try to dismiss my opinion because it doesn't really match up with what a lot of these reviewers, a lot of the gaming media is saying. Like, to be honest with you, I felt like this battle system was just trash, man. The runic attacks weren't really impressive, like I was saying. You can really spam, to be honest, and I found myself really just spamming Atreus arrows at a certain point. Spam the arrows, spam like the runic summoning. Like, there was no skill involved with this game. I don't want to hear that crap about, oh, you just turn the difficulty up. And some people kept saying that, okay, the older God of War games were just button mashers. Well, this feels more of a button masher than the other God of War games. To be honest, I feel like the other God of War games, there was at least more of a strategy in there to the way you had to deal with certain enemies. And what I was saying earlier, earlier in the week, the bosses, like you were hinting at the Valkyries. You were about to talk about the Valkyries earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I fought only 2 of them, and that first one I fought. After that first one, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm starting to notice a pattern because after facing all these bosses in the game, the bosses are under freaking whelming. They don't compare at all to the bosses in the original games. Period. There was only, I want to say, like maybe 3 boss battles in this game, and 2 of them. Okay, well, since we're in spoilers, I can actually say what they are now. The first boss fight with Boulder, the second boss fight with Boulder at the end, and then the dragon boss fight. Those are the best ones. Period. The other ones aren't even on the level of the other God of War games, and even the ones that I just named there, they're slightly inching toward what the older God of War boss battles were, but at least they're better than the rest of them, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't have the same scope of the original boss battles, the same epicness, and the same kind of structure, the same kind of tiered structure that the older God of War games had. Like the only fights that have that is the dragon fight and any fight with Boulder. The rest of them are largely the same. And I haven't really heard you really talk about the boss fights. So let me know what you think about the boss fights and just combat in general. Because I haven't heard you really complain about the combat or anything like that.
Okay, because you've been burning there all the bridges. Okay. Okay. True thoughts. The combat. I feel like it's just been modernized. I honestly feel like it's another product of everything has to do with how games are now being how games are now. And it's like, oh, it's like you either accept it and you're like, and you'll cheer for it, or you'll be the outcast in this and be like, play video games, play video games, play video games. But I agree with you. Like, yeah, the old games were button mashers, but this is too. But except this one is more like I was spamming the shit out of those ruin attacks, especially in those Valkyrie fights. It's like before they could even get out of their like wings, I was hitting them with both the blades and the axe. That's instant damage right there. That was my strategy. But the combat is either hit or miss. It's either you like it or you don't. I am in the camp where it's like, I kind of don't. I kind of don't like what they've done with this because it doesn't feel like a God of War. And to the people who jump on you for saying like, oh, it's still God of War, it's still God of War. No, it's not. This is not the same combat style for obvious reasons, but this is just a modernized combat system where it's like, okay, it's basically been Dark Souls or Last of Us. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it kind of is like with the over shoulder like camera and shit, which sometimes it got on my nerves. Like as I progressed with the game, especially when I kept fighting more and more things, it's like I need that overhead shot of how to fight.
Yeah, they definitely needed to zoom that camera back. They need to pull that camera back. That was something I kept complaining to you about. That was something I kept bringing up in like all the videos I posted so far. Because I feel like, for one thing, getting back to what you were saying about the Valkyries, and you were telling me this earlier in the week about how big their health bars are. Like,
yeah.
There's even like smaller enemies in the game, minor enemies in this game that I felt like they had way too much health. And then the bosses in this game, especially the Valkyries, from what I've seen, they're just a health sponge. At first, I was saying, okay. At first, like during the first half of the game, I was like, okay, I'm surprised there aren't any enemies that feel like health sponges. But then later on in the game, I was like, yeah, man, y'all are just health sponges. Like I done hit you like 1,000,000 times. How are you not dead? How are you not dead? And going back to what you said about the camera, that was something I kept bringing up, and people kept saying, "What are you talking about? The camera is perfect. The camera helps you to feel more immersed and all this crap." It's just like, nah, man. The camera is too zoomed in. That field of view is just obstructed. Like, you can't. I personally, there were many times where there were enemies spawning at my blind spot. There were many times where the enemy wants to slide to the left where I can't see them, and I'll keep in mind, I will be locked on to them at first, right? And then when the enemy, whether it's a minor enemy or a boss, if they decide to kind of move back from you, or especially if they decide to move to the side, sometimes the game would just lock off of them for no apparent reason. And if you stay locked on to them, sometimes that just like the camera would like flip around. It kind of like flip around, and that would kind of mess me up. And then you have that whole thing where you can kind of look in the back of you. But then if you keep doing that, well, not even if you keep doing that, if you use that function, it kind of disorients you. So for me, the camera was one of the main issues as to why I really couldn't get into this, especially when the game decides to throw like 1,000,000 enemies at you at once. And yeah, people kept saying, oh, you can just look at the indicator, or you can listen to Atreus when he tells you to dodge and stuff, or Mimir when he tells you to dodge out the way or look behind you or whatever. They tried to add all those things as like fail safes and like precautions and stuff, the same way that Hellblade had the voices telling you to look out and to dodge and stuff like that. But it just doesn't work here, because I know I keep bringing up Hellblade, but I was looking at footage of that earlier, and I was like, yeah, Hellblade, yeah, the camera was more zoomed in when not compared to this game, because it's obviously zoomed out a lot more. The camera in that game, they just need to pull the camera back to where it was in Hellblade. They just need to pull the camera back in this game. And really, to be honest, they just need to go back to the like you were saying, that the way that they had the camera at first, because I don't think it works. I don't think it works with God of War. And another point that you brought up was Dark Souls. A lot of games get compared to Dark Souls nowadays, but I feel like they definitely pulled a lot from how God of War. I mean, how Dark Souls fighting is. Like Kratos, one thing I will say about Kratos in this is that he moves very slow. I mean, he moves like he's walking in mud or something. Like they have the combat where it's a lot slower, especially if you only have that axe is a lot slower. But as soon as I got the Blades of Chaos, it felt a lot faster, it felt a
Yeah,
lot better. But then
yeah,
I was like, man, if only y'all just zoom that camera out a bit more, and maybe I can get into this a little bit more. Because other than that, I mean, I did not like the combat, man. It just I won't hit on nothing. And we haven't brought this up also because I was hoping that we would get multiple weapons and stuff, but you get the Blades of Chaos like I want to say 70% through the game or whatever. It's
call
like you spend like half the game with that axe the whole time, and it gets like the whole novelty of throwing the axe and then bringing it back to you. That wore off for me. I don't know about you, but that wore
no,
off for me very
I
quickly.
kept doing that. It never wore off of me. I'm sorry.
Man, that wore off so quickly
I'm a
for me.
child. I just like throwing my shit and then calling it back. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No problem, because I keep doing that to you by accident. But one thing I will say, like the axe, like I was thinking that by the time that we unlock the axe, or not the axe, the Blades of Chaos, I was thinking, okay, well maybe I can combo those weapons together. Like I can use the axe and then use the Blades of Chaos in succession. You know, mix it up with those. But I couldn't really find any situations to really do that, especially later on in the game where the game wants to throw again a lot of enemies at you, some at your blind spot, some enemies that use projectiles and stuff like that. It gets hard to kind of crowd control in this game, especially when the camera is so close to you that you can't really monitor. Okay, what is this enemy doing? What is this enemy doing? And then you have to tell Atreus. You have to actually be aiming at the enemy at the time for Atreus to shoot at the enemies that you want him to shoot. I feel like it just doesn't. All these other things that they added, it just doesn't really mesh well together, man. But I was hoping that by the end of this game, because it was so long, I was hoping that we would unlock at least one more weapon, and that's something I didn't like. Like we only had 3 weapons in this game.
What's the third
We had
one?
the axe. Well, I'm counting the bow also, even though you can't really use.
I don't.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I'm counting the bow, but if you don't want to count the bow, we had 2 weapons: the chains of chaos
Chains.
and the blades. I don't know, like the blades of chaos, and then the axe, and then obviously Atreus's bow. And I was disappointed in this because the other games had more than one weapon. Because I feel like having different weapons allowed you to kind of switch things up, man. And another thing that I need to also point out is just the bad controls. And people kept telling me, "Oh, you need to switch back because they're." Excuse me. I'm drinking soda at the same time, and that's why that happened.
It's
Excuse me.
cool. It's cool.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, because people keep telling me I need to switch the controls back. They said so there's 2 control schemes in the game. There's classic and then just the default. I played on classic because I don't like this game has Dark Souls controls basically, and I don't like playing those Dark Souls games like that. And I don't like those. I definitely don't like the Dark Souls controls. So I switched to classic, and to be honest, the controls were very unintuitive for me. I felt there was many times that I wanted to do something else, but I accidentally did this, and it just, man, the controls are just bad to me. The controls are bad. I don't know how you feel about it because you play those Dark Souls games like that. Like you play Bloodborne and stuff, so you probably were used to it.
I'm used to it thanks to like Bloodborne and actually thinking about Bloodborne, it would have like really helped this game if it had Bloodborne's camera. But I'm used to it, so it didn't really affect me that much. I was like really used to like the shoulder buttons and everything else, everything except for a fucking jump button, which again we needed that. Go ahead.
I mean, it's like I honestly I don't know what to really say that could really make people think otherwise. Because I mean, you're either gonna like this combat, you're gonna like the combat in this game, or you're not really.
I just feel like it's been modernized way too heavily, and it's just, I, oh god, I'm just so used to it. But if you take if you took Kratos out of this, just Kratos and the God of War name out of it, um, who knows how this would have done? Just saying. But again, the modernization really does not help here. This really need to be like the old style of combat. Have the story. Have the story because we both said that the story was glorious. Don't touch it. Don't touch it at all. Just have the combat from the old games, as well as Kratos picking up weapons and shit from the bosses that we've killed, including like Thor's sons. Like, what the fuck?
That too. And thanks for bringing that up, because I don't know how I could have missed that. I don't know how I could have missed that aspect, because that was something in the other God of War games also, was that you would pick up weapons. It was basically like Mega Man. You know, once you beat a boss in Mega Man, you get their powers or whatever.
Yeah.
That was another aspect of it. Why didn't we get any of that in this game? And like the enemies that we fight in this game, the bosses that we fight, most of them, they are just like, most of the boss fights are kind of largely the same. There might be a few differences between them, but the boss fights are just so plain in this. Like, I barely, like, again, going back to those 3 boss fights I was talking about earlier, besides those fights, my blood was never pumping. It was never intense. I was never really into it. And a lot of it, like I said, it was really easy to me. I mean, to be honest, I got bored playing one of them. I was just like, I had to turn the game off. Like, the boss battles were just garbage in this. And I don't know why, again, going back to what you said, why we couldn't get different weapons based off of the, the bosses and stuff that we defeated. Like, it's a lot that they dropped from the other games that kind of made this series what it was. And that's why I said earlier that this game, feels like they just took the soul out the game. Like you keep saying, they modernized it a bit too much.
I mean,
you're either gonna like that or not. You're gonna either think that there was a problem with the older games or not. And to be honest, people keep talking about how Ascension sucked. But I mean, honestly, I can't talk about Ascension too much because I only played the multiplayer. I never got to play the story mode because I never got the game back from my brother. But to be honest, I feel like there wasn't an issue with God of War's combat. There was no issue. People saying that it was a button masher, y'all needed to up the difficulty and stop button mashing. There was a lot more to that game. Just like there's a lot more to something like Devil May Cry or something like Ninja Gaiden. Those games are like, all they really needed to do was, even if you wanted to modernize it, you still got to keep some stuff that makes God of War God of War. You kept the story elements. You kind of kept the story elements and kind of changed a few things around, and you made the story work. But as far as the combat goes, as far as the gameplay goes, this game in the gameplay department is pretty weak.
I mean, yeah, we would have had like comparisons, and everybody would have said like, "Oh, Breath of the Wild," because Kratos is stealing everybody's weapons, and that's something that Breath of the Wild does. But still, it's like, why not keep that aspect of what Kratos used to do? Like, why weren't we able to use that lightning abilities that those brothers did? I don't understand that. It's like,
oh yeah, like once we defeat what was Thor's son's name, Magni and Modi or something like that.
Yeah.
Notice the dude dropped his hammer or whatever weapon he was using. I was like, oh snap, are we gonna get that? We never pick it up.
Nope.
I was like, oh snap, we want to get another weapon. Yes, I was wrong about the game. We get more weapons. Nope. Like, he dropped the weapon there. I'm expecting Kratos to pick it up and stuff.
They like cock teased it. I'm sorry, that's the word for it. That is the word for it. They really did cock tease that. I was like, I thought that too. And I'm like, we're not picking that up. Why are we picking that up?
Like,
Go back. Go back.
Like, if I'm not playing with the chains in this game, the combat it's even more insufferable than it already is for me personally, man. Like, if I'm not playing with the chains, man, at least the chains, I'll say like once you get the I keep saying chains, the blades. Once you get the blades of chaos, it gets a lot better, at least for me, because again, it goes back to that problem with the camera where like you can't see the enemies on the side of you. But the way that you fight with the blades, it has like a wide sweep, so you're able to hit multiple enemies. So you can kind of, a lot of his attacks have like that area of effect that'll hit the enemies around them. So it kind of helps a lot more than if you were using that axe. So I feel like the axe is more for like precision.
Yeah, but again, it's either hit or miss. It's either you like it or you don't. I'm with you on this one. The combat really, really is kind of ass, and honestly, they should have, like I said, keep the story intact, leave that alone, take the old games, the old game combat, put that shit in there too. Boom, there you go. There you go. You don't have to modernize it or anything. But no, this is another victim of everything has to be modernized in the 2010s because
like everything has to play like Dark Souls.
Everything has to be
like Dark Souls. And that was one of the like issues early on in the game. And I know it's kind of my fault for going on a lot of the side missions early where like I was fighting dudes at like level 7. I was at like level 4, level 3 or whatever, but I couldn't help it because I couldn't get my level up, even though I was changing my gear. I was upgrading my gear and stuff, and you don't level up fast enough, and that was an issue. You don't level up fast enough, and I felt like the game, as far as like the enemies taking damage out of you, there are enemies in the game like the werewolves, like we were talking about, Wolverines or whatever you want to call them. Them joints can one hit you, and there are a lot of enemies in the game like they'll one hit you or two-piece hit you. If they hit you 2 times, you're dead. So there are enemies that will even heal themselves. And them dang witches, man, them witches.
Oh my god, yeah.
Those witches are so annoying because you have to shoot them. You have to shoot them multiple times before you can even like throw your axe at them or even try to hit them directly because they'll dodge out the way. And that was one of the issues with this game because like if you have the camera, the way that you have this camera set up, and this enemy is dodging you left and right and going to your blind spots and stuff, and you got to fight, especially 2 or 3 of them at the same time, especially with like different types of enemies thrown in there, it could be a headache. It could really be a headache. I don't care how good you are at the game. You might have some issues kind of managing all that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm about to start.
All right.
Okay, so I accidentally cut the software. I accidentally cut the Google Hangouts by accident. So we about to go ahead and just wrap this review up. So what do you think about the soundtrack and like the graphics and stuff like that? Because that's the only other things we really haven't covered. I think we talked enough about the general gameplay and the combat and stuff like that.
Honestly, I think this soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal. Then again, like most God of War games always have been. Well, at least not to the extent where it's like I actually like really get into the soundtrack, especially like now. Soundtracks, especially nowadays. And this one really sounds really more defined. So I love the soundtrack. As for graphics, it's really the most gorgeous looking game on the PlayStation 4 right now. So it really anywhere. So yeah, I love the graphics too.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I actually the music here, it fits the tone of the game and stuff. This isn't really, what I can say is that it's not like the older games where the objective was more to show the grand scale of things. It's gotta be this epic adventure. This is more kind of a toned down adventure. It's more of a game that is trying to be a bit more deep and a bit more thought provoking than what the other games were. So I thought the soundtrack kind of fit what they were going for. I mean, like you said, the other games, it had great music also. I feel like this does too. The graphics, I will say the graphics are pretty much the best that we've seen in any game, with the exception of like the Order or like Battlefront, any of like the Battlefront games and a few others. But this is definitely up there. The only issues I had with like some, like I think it was like maybe 2 environments that there was like texture popping. There was like this weird glitch where like an area of the map kept coming in and out, but I wasn't able to record that unfortunately. Besides, just on a technical standpoint, uh, did you experience any loading or any like lagging or anything like that, or any like frame rate drops? Because
Oh
I
yeah,
experienced some quite a few times.
yeah, I did, especially at the a few points where I was like almost done. Like there was some really bad texture pop ins, and I'm like, oh, oh, that's awful, and it just like corrected itself in like 3 seconds. I'm like, oh no, I saw the curtain. I saw behind the curtain. That's bad. That's terrible.
Yeah, but it's funny that no reviewers really mention like anything about that. None of these review sites mention anything about any of like the frame rate dropping or just any technical issues with the game. And granted, it's very rare. It's very rare when it happens, but it did happen to me quite a few number of times. So
It
I
might
definitely had to bring it up.
it might be because we don't have we're not experiencing everything at full 4K. So who knows?
I mean, yeah, it might run. It probably runs better on a PlayStation 4 Pro. We both were playing on like the standard PlayStation 4, so that could be it. It could probably run a lot better on the PlayStation 4 Pro. It probably doesn't even have those issues if you're playing it up there, but for us, we've experienced those issues. So I just thought I'd bring that up because I don't think anyone's really brought that up yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much all we got to say about God of War. Let's just go ahead and give our ratings. For me, I'll give it. For me, it's hard for me to rate it because I know it's not a bad game. It's not a bad game. I know I posted a video saying that the new direction for this game sucks, and yeah, I stand by that. But it's not a bad game at all. I mean, the highest that I would give it personally for me, just for me, I would give it a 7 out of 10. The highest I think it should be getting is probably an 8, not nines and tens. Like it's getting 8 is like the highest I like the highest I think it should have gotten by all these outlets. I feel the same way about Horizon. I thought Horizon was a bit overrated, just like I think this game is too. This game has a great story, like we were saying earlier, but without the without the without great gameplay to back it up, it's kind of just a average game to me. If you just take the story out of it, so it's a 7 out of 10 for me.
Okay. For me, I would give it an 8 because like pretty much like keep the story, keep the Barry McCready soundtrack intact, keep the graphics in check. But you don't have the old style of the old games of combat to back it up, and no jump button. So that's a problem. I would give it an 8, not no 10, not no 9. It's not a completely flawless game like everyone says that it is. Do I think it deserves those scores? Yeah, I'm in the middle. I'm not going to completely be an asshole and say like it doesn't, because it kind of does just for the story. Just for the story by itself. Yeah. But the combat, that's the biggest turnoff. That's the biggest like off put. That's the one thing that's really off putting for me. So uh overrated. I think like the scores that it's gotten are completely over, like are like putting it way over to where it should be.
Yeah, I
So
think a lot of these gaming journalists, a lot of the critics out there, I feel like they're more blown away by the story in this game. And they're more into, a lot of them I see are kind of more into sort of the Dark Souls kind of slow, methodical combat. And that's kind of where they brought the series into. And so I feel like they're kind of leaning more into that and seeing that, and they're like, okay, yeah, this is revolutionary, this is great. And I've heard so many people say this is game of the generation, this is genre defining. But this
it's
game, and they've already said that there's going to be sequels. There's going to be like 3 or 4 sequels or whatever. I'm like, yeah, y'all got a long ways to go in order to get me back after this. Because to be honest, the next game, I don't even know if I'm gonna buy that, or if I do, it's gonna probably be pre-owned, and it's probably gonna be at a price drop because I don't
Ouch.
like a lot of the new things that they did to this. Like I've said, so
Yeah, I mean, they again, combat guys. That's the one thing that we're really on about. It's like you took that away and you replaced it, you modernized it, and it's like I feel like you you've lasted Last of Us this too much because like problem with that. I had a problem with the combat. I like the story. I hated the
yeah,
combat.
the gameplay in The Last of Us is garbage.
The
But
gameplay. I hated the gameplay.
The Last of Us story is like the best story in video games, and I think that this game has just about the same, the same amount of quality story in it. It's just the gameplay. And I know since you mentioned The Last of Us, a lot of people getting angry because people are kind of comparing it to The Last of Us. And we're not saying that it compares to, well, at least I think you're not really saying that it doesn't compare to The Last of Us when it comes to gameplay, because
Nah.
obviously Last of Us is like a shooting game and stuff. But in terms of the camera positioning, in terms of like the way they're trying to do storytelling, because that's another thing we didn't really bring up, is that whole cinematic thing. They were pushing how Cory Barlog was basically saying that he was going to work on, I think he did work on like the first Tomb Raider or whatever, but he was basically saying how, and I saw this in an interview where he was saying he proposed to them about doing the whole game without having the story cut, like having any of the cut scenes cut, there any cuts in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So the big thing with this God of War, the big thing that people were saying was just like there's no cuts in this game, and it's completely cinematic. And I think that he achieved that in a certain way. I feel like he achieved that, but at the same time, I didn't really feel like I didn't really notice it that much, and that's probably because I didn't play this game all in one sitting. I played a few hours here and then, got off. Next day, get on it, play a few hours, get off. Like I feel like in order to experience this game the way that the developers kind of want you to experience it, you need to kind of sit there and play the entire game, the entire story at least, at like one sitting. Like just sit there, play through the whole thing, and I think you'll kind of get that full cinematic experience that he was going for. Because the whole thing is he didn't want any cuts in the game. He didn't want you to go from this cutscene, fade to black, then go to another cutscene. Yeah, it's basically a one shot, and they do kind of cheat a few times in the story, especially that part where you go into the serpent, or when you're like rowing down the boat where you're about to go into, I think like Helheim or whatever, and like it does go to black, but it doesn't do it in a way where like you can tell they're kind of cutting. They do kind of cheat in a few different areas, but overall, I think they kind of achieved what they did, what they were kind of going for a little bit. But I feel like us as the player, or at least I can only speak for myself, I didn't really notice it that much.
Me either.
So yeah, that's all we gotta say about God of War. And I know some of y'all are gonna disagree with our opinions, or especially mine. I mean, at least he gave it. At least he gave it an 8 out of 10. At least he enjoyed it a lot more than me. But I'm just being honest. I gotta speak up for all those people out there that might not like this game and might be too afraid to like go against everybody else. Because I'm gonna be real with y'all. This game, I'm very disappointed in.
Hey man, like I'm known for like speaking against the grain about shit, so I get it. I understand that, and I also understand like this is either a complete hit or a complete miss. For me, I know what works and I know what don't work. And the combat don't work. The old shoulder don't work. Give me my old combat back. Everything else, perfect. Okay? Perfect.
Except for them bosses. Y'all gotta do better on them bosses.
Them bosses are ass, especially the Valkyries. Those stupid Valkyries, man. Like, I'm telling you, man, you ain't missing much. It just gets worse and worse and worse every time you fight one of them. You're not missing that much. So, yeah, I understand. I do understand, get where you're coming from, though.
Yes, all right. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you watched this far, leave a like or you can dislike the video. I don't really give a crap what you do. Thanks for watching. We out of here. Peace.